Okay, welcome to the last part of the DVD where I'm just going to show you a couple of things about working through the palette. Some quick ways. I'll paint a little flower and stuff here, but paint a little rose, but we'll talk more about the colors and coloring and why and how we're using it, okay? First, this is just a canvas board here, and it's just a cheap canvas board here, one that I use to practice on. You can get these pretty inexpensively at your local craft store or hobby store. But if you're going to practice, the other thing to do I suggest is to get what I really like to do is to take double tempered masonite that you can get at your local hardware store and have them. It's only $8 for a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of it, and then have it ripped up into some corners and then you can give it a base coat, get a light sanding and base coat. I use those a lot in my classes to practice. But on this one right here, I just gave it a coat of medium white here, real quick here, just to kind of put something on. I generally like to put stuff on because with cheap canvases, they put on a cheap plastic gesso. And your paints, especially the higher quality acrylic paints, and even sometimes oils will tend to beat up on it if they put a lot of plastic and stuff into those, so I don't like to do that. I'm going to take my 3/4 inch brush. This is what we use in the Paint It Simply a lot for backgrounds. I'm going to put on a little bit of extender. Let's reach over and let's just say we're going to make this a nice light color. Sometimes I will take some white here. Medium white is white and yellow, and you can have a little bit of brown. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of black in that. Black, if you put black into a color, black is, it's a real dead kind of a gray color. It's pretty in a lot of things, but see how dead that color is? And so a lot of artists don't really like to use a lot, especially as you went into the Impressionistic era of the latter part of the 19th and into 20th century. They didn't like to use the blacks. And so you could kind of warm it up. Take a little bit of your yellow. Let's warm the color up a bit. This is the way I love to paint with Paint It Simply. I love to get mottled colors into my ground like this. And I love to get a little bit of the color onto the background, but the modeling of the color here, and I've got kind of a neutral gray here, a little bit of that yellow warming this up. This is making a nice neutral gray color here. It's very nice. I really kind of like it, but it is a beautiful color to work off of, because then I can warm and cool. Let's just say I take a little more, even a little bit more of like a Hansa yellow, and I'll warm up here into this top side here, or like this. So we'll get a nice warm, and you can see off that medium white, this plays really nice here. And we can, and if you notice, I do a lot of this mixing right on the piece here. So we'll take a little yellow. Let's just take a tiny bit of the blue here, and that'll help us green this up. And then a little bit of our brown here. We'll get that kind of that yellowy green, which I like color. And you can see I just kind of work this in. See, you get this beautiful mottled background here. Now, with a lot of Paint It Simply, we get a lot of harmony from, of course, our intermixing of our colors, like what I'm doing here. And then you also get a lot of harmony by modeling these colors with this brush and putting them on this way, so you don't use just a solid color. You kind of model it through. As I go down here, let's just take a little bit of our white. We have a little bit of our phthalo blue here, which you look at that and you go, oh my gosh, look how powerful that is. Well, I can tone that down, kill that down really quickly with a little bit of my brown. Let's even add a little bit of our yellow to that, which will help green it. And then let's cool it down. Since I'm going to go down towards the shadow side, we'll cool it down with a little bit of the red violet here. And see how that color changes more towards a gray. And I know I'm making more of a gray because it's tertiary. I had yellow in there. I had red in there, which is my red violet. And I had blue in there. So I had a tertiary color. And you can see I just get this gray down here. So as an artist, as I'm working these colors like this, what I like to do is, let's just say, okay, I'm going to take a little blue. Let's say, boom, I got blue in here. You have to think through your colors. I got a lot of blue here, and I want to gray that down. How to gray it down? Well, you can take black and white and gray, and then that's physically what a lot of artists didn't like to do because it was so dead of a color, but you can, like we did here. The other thing is you got to think you get tertiary. I can take some of my brown, I can take some of my brown color, and that will help me do that. I can get my reds, and since I'm down here towards what would be a shadow side, if my light was coming up through here, this would be a shadow side. Let's cut a little bit of my violet in there, and then I got to get some of my yellow in there too. Some of my yellow, my Hansa yellow in there is going to help see how immediately that grays that whole thing down there, right there, really nice. So as you're mixing it through here, if you see a lot of blue and you want to gray that, then you got to get, what's the opposite of blue? Really is an orange, which is, we're going to use this more of our yellow, and then since we're cooling it, we'll use the red violet instead of the other red. We'll get that in there and see how that just grays that down. So I'm constantly looking at my colors here, at the values and the color that I see, the colors that I perceive, and I'm changing those colors. If I want it to go more green, if I see a lot of blue and I want it to go more green, then I grab yellow. And I'll grab some of that and add some of that in there. If I have a light here, what do you see here? Light and yellow. And now I want to soften those together. Well, there's such a big difference here. If I keep working that, then I will lose some of this nice modeling because the color will become one because they're too far apart. So I'll just take a little bit of white right here and a little bit of yellow right in here. And I'll just scrub those two together right down into here and take that right in, actually up both ways. And it'll come up and soften this way up here, and that will soften, and you'll get this lovely working of color now on this canvas. And you got this nice modeling of color. I'll pinch wipe my brush here and just kind of carry this through. But as I'm painting with this, and we're painting things simply here, I've got a nice light, warmer yellow here. Let's get rid of some of these long strokes. You know, I watched an artist for many, many years, and I loved her, the way in which she taught. She always said when you're working a background, there should be no stroke in a background longer than like 3 inches. And which is very true, because if you go like this too long, see, that's too much movement into your background. So you want to do smaller little movements into your background. But now you see you got all this background. This background here carries a lot of colors and a lot of nice, beautiful interest in it. And it's a perfect background now for me to come in here, take my smaller, this is my little Painted Simply Fusion, number 4, and I can just come right in here now with this one, and we can work, the shape of a rose. So let's go through the shape of a flower here, maybe a kind of an open rose. So what I do if I'm going to be painting a flower is, let's just take a flower here and let's just kind of say, my flower, I love to sketch it on. I love to have a little bit of this. It's not a lot. It's not real thick on here. It's just lightly on here. My background. And let's just create kind of a dirty color here to, you could use some of your brown. You could even create it, just even a little warmer red here. Just create kind of a gray kind of color here. The gray color comes from all your colors together here. Let's just kind of gray this color up here just a bit, brown that just a bit, and we'll use this just to kind of say, okay, this is going to be my area of my flower. My flower will occupy, we'll paint kind of a white flower here, because the white flower can carry all kinds of temperature on it really well. So I've got this area here, and in the lessons you'll see where I talk about painting roses and flowers as circles and ovals, and causing them to turn and change and stuff like that. So there's all different kinds of shapes you can use. We're not going to go into that. I'm just going to be talking with you on this one about color. Okay, so here we have basically a gray. Now this gray works well with my background, so that, and one of the things I'm thinking about is that the color is receding here into the back. So I set up my receding planes. I want to set up a forward plane when I want to do it with contrast. So the next thing that I think about now is I have that. This is the area that my flower is going to occupy. Now the next thing I want to do is establish its shadows and it's some temperature into it. And when you're going to establish the shadows, you might as well do it with some temperature right away. So here is my base color here. As a matter of fact, we can make that, add just a little bit more brown into that. Let's get that down, that our base brown down into that. And let's just get a little bit of our red violet down in here. This is our cool color. Our red violet, I like to use, especially into flowers, I love to use like a red violet here into this because the red violet's cool. And the red violet will really help me set. You see, it's a nice cool color. It plays well. And I'm just going to move this around here like this, just painting this around, and let it just kind of soften out as it comes up to the top of the backside. I want the viewer's eye to come down into here. So one of the things is my background is light, so I know that a dark color will cause your eye to come down in there, and a dark cool color will cause your eye to, will cause that to sink in and your eye to go in there for contrast. So I need this dark, cool color down in here like this. Here. Okay. That goes in like that. And then I'll let it play, slowly coming out. I'm just adding some movement here. See, I'm moving my brush in all different kinds of ways. Just kind of sketching the oval shape here, moving it this way. Now, if the light is coming up here, we got the warmer light coming up from here, we're going to want a cooler shadow down over here on this side of your painting. So you might as well get some of that cool red violet right into this area. Sometimes I'll use my fingers in like this too, especially if it's on a receding plane. Let's just use our finger and in there and soften some of that up here. Just soften this up just a bit. There we go. Here's like that. Here, we can use a little bit of that up over here, just a touch. So now I got the cool side of the flower and a warm side of the flower. And of course, you can cool off with other things. If you want to keep this flower not quite as much red violet, you can drop that red violet into any color, greens, into blues, into violets, into yellows, anything that you want. Let's take a little bit of our two yellows, our Hansa and our base yellow here, and let's just drop this into the nice warm front side. So you definitely get a nice warm front. And what I do is I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to bring the viewer's eye right into this part of the flower. So what I want to have is a real contrast between my cool deep side in here and my warmth. And I know that my yellows here are warm, right? My Hansa yellow, this, I can even toss in a little bit of my Naphthol. Let's slide this over just a bit here. Even put in a little bit. So here's my cool, excuse me. Here's my warm. And I'll even put some of that warm right into this cool. Just let that fade in over there. Nice warm color here. And then you can use your finger, soften it out. Sometimes I'll use the finger in and out like this to give movements, idea of movement to the petal. See how that gives just a real soft movement to your flower here, just like that. See? There you go. Here we go, just like that. So now I got that there. So these are just the colors that we were just talking about in our palette. Here, I'll deepen this a little bit more. I want a little more contrast there, a little more zip into this flower. Maybe we'll deepen this shadow a little bit more up into there. Notice how I paint in all different directions. If I want a casual flower, I have to paint it casual. I don't want to stroke it. I was a stroke painter for so many years, and it took me a long time to break these little habits of doing this. Okay, now, once I get the flower kind of set up here, it's warm side, it's cool side, whatever I want. I also will take some of my other colors. Let's just take a blue and a yellow here. We'll make a green. We'll even just toss it right into some of this. Cool that right on down here. Toss into some of that red violet. And I'll put on some... This is where I put on this, where leaves might be. It doesn't have to be leaves. It just has to be the idea of leaves. And if you're going to paint flowers that are going to have like translucent or transparent type petals, you're going to want to establish some green in the leaves that you'll see before you paint the petals so that you can leave some of those. Let's get a little of that red violet. Oh, I like that in there. play that in there a bit. So you can see through the petals to the green that's underneath there. So if you're going to play, let's warm this a bit over here to this side as we see the difference in the temperature here. See the warm colors to the cool colors here. Just by sliding over here to this warm side. To that's warmer and that little bit of red in there. Look what that does. See? And I establish a warm and cool. Very easy to do on your palette when you use that. We use these Paint It Simply techniques of the cool color of the red violet and the warm color of our Naphthol red light here. And then you use any color in between. So you got cools to warms here going right away. Now, let's just come in and say, okay, so those will be the leaves in there. Let's go in and let's grab a big old dollop of our white. We're going to have a white rose here that goes to some different colors. We know that, see, if I take my white here now, we know this cools it. We know this is warm. So if I go this way, my white will become very warm. See how it becomes very warm right there. And if I go this way, my white's going to become very cool. See the difference between the cool and the warm there? This way. Because that's, I have the red violet into that. That's cool in it. And this right over here, that's warm in it. Okay? So I'm going to start out somewhere right in here. And maybe it's slightly to the warm side here. We'll pick up some of this color in here. Then I model it. I do what I call modeling. You tap through the colors, pick up your colors, model it through like this. Okay. Then sometimes I'll get the extra off, and then I'm just going to pick up a little edge of the white, a little heavier edge of the white. This is why I told you earlier on in the videos that I like to have my white a little bit thick. It picks up that edge really nice. And I use this edge to kind of draw in the edge here of the flower. And the flower, this one's going to be opened up slightly, but the flower I'll just come around like this, okay? And then I'm just going to tap into a little bit more, model it. Don't stroke it, tap it in, a little more color here, and then we'll just pull down here, pull down, and pull down. And this will lighten up, just kind of push it around and pull down. And this will lighten up our flower here. See how that lightens that up? Starts to build this part of the flower a little bit farther forward here. So we'll pull this on here like this and pull down. So I use the chisel of this little brush here. We'll draw this even a little bit more on the warm side here. I use this little chisel to draw the petal and then just pull down lightly like that. And then I can cool this up in here as I go into the inside of the flower here. So I'm going to move around. I'll go this way into some of the cooler color. I can get it a little bit light here, but I want to make sure that it stays a little cooler here. See, I pick up that little bead, and I'll use that little bead to kind of just use it to draw around some of my petals here. We want that just to, we'll put a little cool over here just to help that start to round down over there. But we'll use that cool like right over here on this side of the flower. See, that starts to, so you're going to get a lighter, warmer side or cooler side. We'll use that little cool and little edge of it here. We'll draw out some petals here. We'll warm it up over on this side because we know we want this part of the flower lighter and warmer here, out like that. Then I'll wipe my brush. We'll just tap into our model of our warm colors here. Just model these together. Warm them up. And let's just pull in right up against the edge. Sometimes I push out a little bit and pull in, just like this. Push out and pull in. Okay, and let what happen. Now, that's a little much red right there for me. I can stop that instantly just by touching into a little of the green over here. Put a little bit of that into the brush and see how that grays that red right out? And you're constantly wanting that. You're working your palette. If you see, you want that modeled interest in there for interest within your flower so that you don't have one color. But if you see something happening, like, for example, if I had too much yellow, I might head into a little bit of a violet, which is across the wheel on our palette. On our global palette here, it's across the wheel, right? Okay? It's across the wheel. The global palette's very important for doing that. Sets up all of your colors, exactly what you want it to be. Okay? And so then we will pull. Sometimes I'll pull out too. I'll pull the shadow side out. If I don't want to get too light out at the tip, I'll pull the shadow side out. And then you can model this a bit. You can restate any of your shadows that you might want to have. Let's just restate a little bit more here. Like that. Okay. And let's get into our warmer colors here. Let's get just a little more yellow over here and a little bit more of our basic green. These are all for you in the Paint It Simply program. All of these are right there. Just watch your, you're on the warm side, right? What we just talked about. Okay. So the global palette is really important for this because you can paint all this stuff without even having to think too much about color. Shows you right away where to go. So we'll go this way. Now as we get over here, we got to think about getting to our cool. So slide over here towards your cool so you don't get too light. See the difference in there? And pull down so that you can get a softer light over on this side. Just pull down there like that. And that nice light warm, tap into that. Let's just put some of those right up over here on this side. Let's pick, and you see you go through a lot of white, but you can see why I like that nice heavy white into my painting. We'll grab some of this cooler light and pull down just a little bit. Then when you pull down, you give height to the rose. You get height to the petals here. So we'll just continue that up and around here. See, a little bit of light back here will help marry this edge and this edge. You got to think of it rounding through. It's got to round through, right? So you got to think of it rounding through and just kind of joining up. That's your flower. And let that fade in back through there. We'll build up more up here into the front. So just grab that and see how I just use that chisel of that brush. And I'm constantly wiping my brush like this. And I'll use that and just kind of push and pull into that edge. Maybe I want to have a bit more white, a little bit lighter there. And pull into that. That's all part of it as well there. And build this. Build this one up just a bit more. And pull this in and make this all part of that. So earlier in the other video you watched me, the other part of the video you watched me mix these colors, mix these 6 colors, and you saw that, now we've been painting here. See, it's not drying. See how wet this all is still? It's not drying like an acrylic. These stay a lot, very, very wet for a long time. You mix that extender into them. These are different. These are different paints than your other bottled acrylic. Way different. Matter of fact, they're not even in the same category as a bottled acrylic. So if you're going to try some of these beautiful painting techniques, you can't do this with a bottled acrylic. It will not work. They do not have enough pigment. See, I haven't even cleaned my brush. You haven't even seen me clean my brush anywhere. I haven't rinsed it out in water. I don't. I wipe my brush. And one reason why I can is because these paints have so much pigment in them. There's so much pigment. They're artist quality. And I love to do this. If I get something too light right here, I just take my finger and I'll lift right back out and lift that shadow right back out there too. So I can play back and forth here with lights and darks here until I get the look that I want. But you can't do that with the bottled acrylic. There's not enough paint in there. They're made to do craft techniques. I know. I painted a lot of books with them. Painted a lot of DVDs with them. But I use them for the techniques that they're designed to use. They're not designed to do this. So a majority of the acrylics out there are not designed to paint like this. So you have to use them that are the newer generation ones that are designed to paint like this to be able to paint like this. So then we'll slide right over here to the cool side. Let's put a little bit of that cool side, a little cool light right here. Just drop another little petal in there and just lightly pull out to give a little movement to that petal. There, like that. So you get another little run of that right there. Let's give another little idea. See, I'll just push in. I don't side load it or anything. I'll just push in like that. Pick up that little edge of that light, and I'll use that little edge right there like that. Then tap a little bit of it into your brush. Just tap. Don't stroke. Just tap it in so it's modeled in, and just pull it down just a few places here to incorporate that into that side of the flower. And you start to get this real pretty little flower. And you can use this to, we can turn this a bit around a bit here and start to close up this side of the flower. You can use just that little edge, just push right into that little edge like that. And you can add second or third little rows of petals in there. Just like that. And then, of course, you'll see in all the DVDs that we do how we go about doing the leaves. But again, it's this way to cool. So I would come right up into here if I was going to set in some cool leaves. And I start to build these out, set right up into here. If I'm going to come out into start to develop some warmer leaves as I start to the leaf shapes here. You can even take a little bit of your black, which I don't like to do too often, cool it with a little red violet. That becomes your shadow, and you do what we call negative painting. If you really want this flower to really pop off here, you do what we call negative painting, and you pop it off this way, and you create more contrast against that edge. So we do quite a few different techniques with the Paint It Simply in the we use, but you notice the brushwork is really fun. It's just light and casual, and it's this little brush. You're painting everything with this. The key is this fun little brush that just does all the work and all of the like the blending and stuff for you. Here we'll get a little bit more of a lighter yellow green there. So I'll start working my warmer greens, yellow greens, lighter greens up onto this side. Work these out here, start to shape up. I just to slowly start to build the shape and ideas of petals that I will have. The leaf that I'll have here, going right up against the edge of those petals. And sometimes I'll pull in, I'll push out, I'll paint in many different directions. That's one thing that I say that I've really changed as an artist in the last 5-6 years is where I used to do a lot of stroke work, now I paint in many different directions. My brush moves in many directions. But that gives you a real quick little idea there about warms and cools and how we're utilizing that global palette and utilizing those 6 colors, putting them out and setting up our palette here from our warms and cools. And you see when you get done here, you can see your flower in your painting there, and you'll see the cool side of my palette, the warm side of my palette, and then the lights and darks that I get. And anytime that I want to head into shadows, I'm going this way. Anytime I want to head into highlights, I'm going up this way. That's the beautiful thing about the Paint It Simply is we do a lot of these types of color work, these temperature working paintings, because they really are a lot of fun. And you can see it paints very fast. It paints very simply. Thanks for joining me on this color excursion that we've done on this video and the last 3 that we have showing you the setting up of the palettes of the Paint It Simply, and then how we go about painting some simple techniques with some warms and cools. I'll look forward to painting with you into the lessons on Paint It Simply. Hopefully you're going to give Paint It Simply a try. You just need a couple of colors to start with, a couple of brushes to start with, and then several hundred roses, and you'll be able to get it, okay? We have lots of techniques and lots of fun and lots of things for you to paint. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the lessons. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time here at the Jansen Art Studio. Bye-bye.